and we're really excited to be able to join with other members of the SNHU community tonight to be able to provide this programming, especially in such uncertain times and really kind of a new normal that's developing for everyone. And fortunately, we have some really great colleagues who play in a virtual space all the time for their work with our students and with our athletes. And so tonight's program, Esports, Change Management, and Adaptability, is really going to be a conversation between Dr. Michael Newhouse Bailey and our esports director Tim Fowler. And so my role tonight, especially as a novice, this is my first time broadcasting live through Twitch, and we're using Discord right now for our broadcasting, to be able to welcome you to something that might be a new venue for us for programming and engaging our community. So my role tonight is just to introduce the program, to welcome you all, to thank our sponsor, the Letty Group. Our Business Indicator series typically has had a in-person format and then a live stream availability. But given the content for tonight, we thought what a great opportunity to be able to use the channels that the games are played in. And so tonight, thank you for joining us. We will have a chat feature, so we hope you'll engage with us. And following the program, feel free to give us feedback about other opportunities that you might like to be engaged with, so that we can continue to counter the news cycle and be able to really continue to build our community. And that can be sent to alumni at snhu.edu or either to the esports team as well, because we'll all be working together to think of our way forward. So thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Tim Fowler, who's going to explain a little bit about the use of Twitch this evening.
Things have changed. Hello, everyone. Mike, if you could do me a favor and share your video, that would be great. Thank you. Let me fix that briefly. Sorry, everybody. Hello. My name is Tim Fowler. I'm glad for all of you to join. This is Dr. Michael Newhouse Bailey, Associate Dean for the School of Business, and we're going to be talking about esports. How are you, Michael?
I'm doing well, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Good, of course. I want to also welcome everybody to Twitch. I know that some people who are interested in esports already really know what is going on here, but for those of you who have never used the platform before, um, it's a pretty cool one. So we'll be utilizing it not only to share all the presentation, but for the interaction. So if you have any questions, please feel free, create an account on Twitch and put them through. We will be keeping an eye on chat and checking things out. If there are any sound, video, any sort of issues that do come up, please let me know. I can change them on the fly. And we will kind of go from there. So um, Michael and I have both been working on esports at SNU. I have been directing the varsity program on campus, and Michael has been helping to start an academic program in esports and some courses in esports and also intramurals. So hopefully we will be able to share with you what we've been working on and kind of what is happening around the campus. So, there may be some of you who are not totally aware what esports is. I have a video here that I am going to share.
What does preparation look like heading into tomorrow's matches? And is there
The
anything
video
that
looks a little
we
bit
can do
choppy, so I would like
differently
to
to adjust
apologize
to
for
the
that
new
ahead of
normal?
time.
우리 팀이 좀 압박이 세지 않을까 생각합니다. 일단 첫
The
세트를
video is very
보니까 그렇게
choppy, so I
시작하면
apologize
let's just be
again.
able to hold.
Oh, we went away. My apologies. So, my primary goal with this video, and I'm gonna mute it kind of ahead of time here. Sorry again for the choppy video. This is the Overwatch League. It's the grand finals from 2018, and it really does a great job of showing every facet of esports, not only from a sport management perspective, but also fan perspective and industry perspective. So we get to see behind the scenes with the players. The London Spitfire that year, for example, was an exclusively Korean team, franchised by in London, in a locationally based area, uh, playing in an English league. So they had translators kind of all the way through. So you can kind of see the amount of support and infrastructure that is behind professional esports leagues as it stands right now. At base, esports is competitive video games, so not necessarily just Super Mario, but games where people are pitted against each other in competition of some sort. That can look anything from Overwatch, and again, apologize for the choppy video, to NBA or NASCAR, depending on the type of game that you're interested in playing. So you could see this was held at the Barclays Center in New York, and they filled the stadium. They had thousands of people watching. It was a really great event. You can see kind of the way that technology is kind of front and center here as well. That is esports. That's an amazing screen. So separately from that, when it comes to market, you can really see the growth that's kind of happening around esports. The gaming industry is one of the largest industries in the world. Esports just a microcosm of the greater gaming industry, but you can see that it's growing and set to grow over the course of the next few years. You did not see any video. Okay, my apologies. I will bring the video next time. We have another video that I will attempt to play better. Sorry about that, everybody. Hopefully I gave you a pretty good overview of what esports was, regardless of video. We'll get there. I'll fix it. Maybe I'll run it again at the end. I could pull that in.
So
So
Tim, right now the slideshow's not showing on the feed.
oh my god. You're right. I didn't click the one button that I was supposed to click. Sorry, everybody. I'm going to go back and I'm going to show that video. Because I am
What does preparation look like heading into?
I am bad at running a
tomorrow's
stream,
matches?
apparently.
And is there anything that Philly?
That's okay. They tuned in to see us anyways. So
Yeah, welcome everybody. The real question is, why is it pulling that? Now it's pulling just you. I figured out what the problem is, everybody. We did it. This is what happens when you share things, when you change things at the very end. Please hold. We almost got there. We got there. Welcome, everybody. Streaming 101 isn't in the curriculum. I actually very recently gave a guest lecture in it. Amazingly. There you go. Sorry, everybody. This is the video. And it was choppy.
What does preparation look like heading into tomorrow's matches? And is there anything that Philly did that you need to adjust for?
우리 팀이 좀 압박이 세지 않을까 생각합니다. 일단 첫 세트를
I think the pressure is definitely on us to be able to hold our winning status currently, because going into tomorrow's match, we have to make sure that we don't make the mistakes that we did today and make sure we play a really, really strong game. And Philadelphia Fusion, when they have the momentum, they are definitely a really strong team, so we need to be careful of that. We're dedicating our lives to this, making sure we are the best of the best. Yeah, I don't think anyone can do what we do.
Nate, it should be no secret that starting a sports league, that's no overnight task. And this season, we've had a lot of ups and downs, but what has been the biggest thing that you've learned so far in season one?
Honestly, the biggest thing I learned this year is how amazing our fans are. And I'm not just saying that because I want you to cheer. Honestly, to see thousands of people around the country turn out for watch parties in Houston and Boston and Shanghai and Seoul. The fact that there's supporters clubs and all these things happening around these teams, it's really blown us away, and we couldn't be more proud to put on a show for you guys.
Thank you so much. Everybody here at the Barclays, give it up one more time for our commissioner, Nate Nancer. Yes, indeed.
$1 million in that beautiful trophy up for grabs today. We are back in the sold-out Barclays Center in the heart of New York City for the conclusion of the first ever Overwatch League Grand Finals.
Are you ready? London versus Philly. Let's make this happen.
So that was the video that I was trying to show everybody, and I apologize for being quiet there, but I wanted to just kind of let the audio go. As you can see, there was quite a bit there. People not only behind the scenes, but in the foreground as well. So going back into kind of what I was discussing previously, is the growth of the market and the growth of the audience. Primarily in Asia, but also kind of around the entire world. My introduction to esports was with Korean StarCraft. So I was watching StarCraft being broadcast from South Korea. They had it on TV years before anybody else did, and that was one of my favorite times. I love old StarCraft. So this is to give you an idea of kind of the growth of the industry, not necessarily just the market itself. It's taken from Hitmarker. It's a jobs board for esports, kind of showing the trend in data over the course of 2 years, how jobs continue to grow over 2018 and 2019 to over 11,000. And in conjunction with just the growth of jobs, there's also been a pretty significant shift from unpaid work to paid work, which has been really great to see. I love this slide, to Nicholas, who put this together. Nobody that I know, but want to give them a little bit of credit. This is a good indicator of kind of what jobs exist in esports and in the professional industry, but also in the collegiate industry and surrounding. A lot of people who are looking to hire esports professionals are looking for people who are interested in a different field primarily, and also esports, not necessarily exclusively esports. So you see a lot of people with IT backgrounds who are focused and knowledgeable about esports, or health management or performance management, coaches, etc. This is me. So how I got started and the way that I was introduced to this profession. This is me in college, just about 10 years ago. So I was lucky enough that the college was building a student center at the time, and about a year prior, it started a competitive gaming team. We played StarCraft 2 and League of Legends, and during that time, they asked me if we had any ideas for new things that could go into the student center. So they gave us a bit of money, and we built 6 custom gaming PCs, and we put them in the student center. And I ran StarCraft teams and League of Legends team when I was in college. So I had this knowledge. I graduated from that college, and I got a job at SNHU in the IT department, and eventually acted as the change manager there. So I kind of brought the knowledge that I had from my experiences in college forward to SNHU and started the program. We founded in August of 2018, and we run 4 games: League of Legends, Overwatch, Hearthstone, and Fortnite at the varsity level. Um, and it has been awesome. It's a great program. It's a lot of fun to work with. So when I came up with the idea of the program, and when we started to look into kind of interest around campus, we did a survey. We had just about 400 students respond. Of those, we had 300 that were interested. And what was most interesting to us about this was that the people who were interested weren't necessarily exclusively interested in playing on our varsity teams. So when we did this, I wanted to make sure that the program incorporated a lot of different elements, not necessarily just varsity players, but also people working in the background, doing graphic design, doing streaming and broadcasting, telling me when I'm streaming poorly. Thank you again, Mike. And from there, we started teams. And this image is from our championships that we made last year. So the League of Legends team went to Manhattan to go to the New York Institute of Technology and play League of Legends in the finals for the East Coast Conference there. And on the right, our Fortnite team, we had 2 duos make it to the top 16 in the country. So we flew to Atlantic City to play in the Collegiate Star League finals there. So within our first year, we were already doing travel, making it to championships. It's a really fun time. Definitely a cool experience to be able to go somewhere and play live on stage. We were really excited about. And separately from our teams, we also have a content creation team. So that's the team that's focused primarily on bringing content to this channel, to Twitch and to the rest of the community. So we utilize agile methodology. So if anybody is familiar, like I said, my background is IT, and I was doing software administration. So we utilize agile, and we size all of the graphics that we intend to put out to social media and to Twitch and everything of the sort. And our graphic designers are able to pick them up and do some work on them and push them through to production effectively. So we're able to take some of the principles that I learned regarding change and change management and kind of implement them directly into our content team and how we produce things. And we've also been working on a pretty big arena. Esports arenas kind of all around the country look pretty different. This is a sneak peek. So this is where we would have been meeting today had we had the ability to still be on campus. But we have not opened the arena just yet. We're waiting for all of the students to come back. But I did want to at least show everybody who thought they were going to be at the arena what it looks like. So this is one of the preliminary photos. You can see Sutan, one of our League of Legends players and currently a moderator in chat right now, is working on one of the computers. But this is a larger room than it even looks. There's a viewing gallery up above, kind of behind where everybody can see. And we're hoping to host all of our live events there. So this space will not only house the varsity teams, it will also have our streamers and graphic designers putting their content up. We have students that do commentary over all of our matches, all of our games that will be in there, and we'll be broadcasting to this channel once we are back in that arena. So I hope that everybody appreciates the sneak peek and is excited to get in there. I'm excited to build kind of the community and be able to have a home and a space that all of our players are able to live in and work in. So to just kind of give you a quick rundown of the things that we have available to our players and other academic endeavors, or students at SNHU. For varsity, we have scholarships for all of our players. We have coaches, we have gear, jerseys, etc. They will have dedicated arena time. So we'll have our practice sessions kind of explicitly for varsity. We work on coaching, but also marketing themselves. So some professional development, what they could do to do tryouts for other teams, pro or semi-pro leagues, etc. And we keep on academics. All of our varsity players have minimum GPA requirements, progress towards degrees, same thing that traditional sports players have. The career opportunities, like I mentioned, we have the content team, and most of those jobs in the content team are graphic designers, commentators, streamers, etc. And then academics. So we are have approved a minor, Mike?
Yes, the minor's on campus currently. And we're working to get that available to our online learners as well.
Got it. Mike, your video has frozen. So if you might want to restart that, you're giving a pretty stern look to the camera right now. So there we go. We'll get you back up there. Sorry, everybody. Better. Cool. Good. Oh God, we did it again. It's just your face. Back. Okay, cool. So with that, I will transition over to you, Mike. Talk a little bit about professional esports and what we'll be teaching in the minor.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. For a little bit of background, I am part of the global campus. So I work remotely from Austin, Texas. I've been with GC for about 5 years full time now. And it's been great working with Tim for the past year, trying to see how we can engage the online community with the esports program because it's such a natural fit. And so, what I wanted to do to kind of start my section of the presentation with is just kind of talk about the esport kind of structure as a whole and kind of why I guess it's something that I've been trying to teach in my courses to my students for a number of years, really, because again, it is very relevant to sport management and to the students that are going into that field. And so I wanted to start off by talking about just some of the different models that you see with sport or esport organizations. Kind of the most popular one and the biggest one would be clans. There's also some geospatial teams that are coming up that have been growing a lot lately. And geospatial is just kind of a fancy term to say localized. And so you'll see them within your home community, like the SNHU varsity program is a localized one to the Manchester area. And then you also are starting to see it in interscholastic and in intercollegiate as well. So moving on to just talk about clans specifically, at its kind of base, a clan is a group of people who play video games together. It's a very simple concept. It's something that's been around for as long as video games has been around. But once people started playing games online, clans were able to form in kind of virtual communities, and they didn't have to be physically located in the same town, the same state, the same country in order to participate. And so these started out pretty informal, but very quickly became kind of professionalized. And so you could have an informal clan just with some friends that like getting together and playing League of Legends on a regular basis. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that would be an esport clan. Or you could be a professional clan like Team Liquid, which we'll talk about later, which has a formal management structure to it. There's a large staff that's running it. They have corporate sponsorships. They have professional teams that are making millions of dollars, and it looks a lot different than an informal clan. One thing that I think is pretty cool with clans is that if you're interested in signing with a big one, a lot of players and athletes will join an informal one and try to showcase their talent to get signed by one of the bigger ones. And so again, like especially given the social distancing that we're practicing right now, being a member of a clan is a good way to stay engaged with your team, regardless of where you're located. Um, Tim gave me a little bit of education on Team Liquid today. I had focused on Team Liquid because they're one of the most successful and kind of watched gaming clans that exists. In 2018, they earned over $7 million just through some of their bigger esports, including Fortnite and League of Legends. And what I learned from Tim today is Team Liquid had a very humble beginning. He's going to talk later about kind of the meta game that exists. And Team Liquid started as just a website for people to get information about StarCraft.
Yep,
So it was basically
I love Team Liquid explicitly for that reason, because I remember back when I was starting those teams at my college, I would go to teamliquid.net every day, and it was just a forum for people to talk about StarCraft strategy.
yeah, and just like that common interest was a way to bring people together from all across the globe, and then kind of organically grow and form a very successful professional clan. So it's really cool to see how having this shared common interest can really bring people together. The other type of esport kind of structure that you're starting to see, especially more frequently lately, would be the geospatial teams. And these look very similar to traditional sport. Like Tim showed the video eventually of
Sorry.
the Overwatch championships, and it was something where when you watch it and you see people scanning their tickets to go in, you see them sitting in the stands cheering on the team. Like it's something that feels like you're at any traditional sporting event. The first time I ever kind of had that experience was a StarCraft event that was at a local sports bar when I was in college. I went to go watch baseball, and it was a StarCraft satellite location. And so I went in there, and every single TV screen in the sports bar was StarCraft. But there was a very localized fan base, and it was like I was at a sports bar during the Super Bowl. It was a really cool experience to immerse myself in that culture that at the time was very foreign to me. So again, it has a lot of similar feels to traditional sport. One example I want to share that's, I guess, near and dear to me here in Austin is EMLS. We're getting a Major League Soccer franchise here in the near future. The stadium's not built yet; it's under construction, and the team hasn't played a game yet. But we do have an EMLS representation. So they held tryouts, and we now have someone who represents the Austin FC in the EMLS Cup. So we have someone that locally we can cheer for, and we can go to different events and watch parties and watch them compete. The other example is that I can think of is the Overwatch League. They did a really good job of really wanting to grow that localized fan base. I had a chance to briefly talk with the commissioner a couple years ago at South by Southwest Gaming, and he said his focus with the Overwatch League was really getting that community fan base, which is much different than a clan that has fans all across the globe. Like it was really about developing that community in the home turf of the teams. And one rule that they instituted early on was that each team was given a specific territory that they could market in, and no other teams could market in that same territory. So when I went to South by Southwest Gaming, the Houston Outlaws were there, but the Dallas team wasn't allowed to have a presence there despite being just a few hours down the road. They really wanted to avoid cannibalizing each other's fans. Same thing, I was able to go to PAX East last year, and the Boston Uprising was there, and there were no other representation of individual Overwatch League teams because again, they really want the home team to be able to market to their home fans. Um, Another trend that we're starting to see is a lot of pro sports are starting to develop kind of esport wings within their own departments. And could you go back? Sorry, Tim.
Yes, my apologies. I jumped too soon.
But you're seeing these pro sport teams really develop their own esports. And the first example that I could think of was a lot of NBA teams started developing League of Legends teams. Some athletes were very early to pick up on what esports was and what it could be, and so they started kind of investing their own money in these teams. And the Houston Rockets, for example, had a pretty successful League of Legends team. And when the NBA 2K League launched, which was their esports league that's basketball based, the Houston Rockets actually sat the first year out because they already had their League of Legends esports that was doing its own thing, and they didn't want to mess with that. And the NBA 2K is a very interesting approach too because it's 5-on-5. So you have 5 esport athletes competing against 5 esport athletes, just like you would in basketball. And the players had to go through a combine. All their data was tracked. There was a draft to get the teams, and the players are official NBA employees. And they reside in the same town as their NBA franchise. They have access to the same team doctors, team facilities. They're part of the NBA pension plan, and they are considered legitimate NBA athletes, which they are. And it's really cool to see that legitimacy given to those esport athletes. I talked about ELMLS a little bit. I'll try to get moving a little quicker. NASCAR just over the weekend had a broadcast on ESPN that was I think the largest viewed esport event on that was broadcast on TV. Now it didn't hit some of the numbers that you see streaming, but I think it had just under 1 million on the Nielsen. And this was one where NASCAR traditionally, I think, had esport athletes that were driving. And since there's no NASCAR season right now, they actually had some NASCAR drivers set up with gaming rigs so they could virtually drive in a NASCAR race against one another. And then the Overwatch League, I feel we've touched on enough. We can move on for the sake of time.
Sure.
Thank you, Tim. And then
Sure.
again, I'll go quick, just so there's time for Q&A. But one thing that's been really neat to see as a parent who has a 12-year-old who's going to be getting into high school before I want him to, is that you're seeing formal esports in the high school. There's a couple different organizations that are helping kind of manage that. I believe Riot Games has their own that does both college and high school. But the big one would be Play Versus, which partnered with the National Federation of State High School Associations to provide like organized, structured varsity esports in the high school setting. And what I think is really cool about it is it's much more inclusive than traditional sport. I believe that if you want to participate on a team, you are allowed to participate on the team, and the teams are also co-ed, which I think is really great. On the college level, there's again a couple different governing bodies. The big one that I often compare to like the NCAA of esports is the NACE, and it's amazing to see how much it's grown in the past couple of years. It's over 170 schools now and over 5,000 esport athletes, and they're already seeing a lot of benefits, which to me aren't too surprising, but I'm sure to some parents would be surprising in terms of how kids who are part of these teams, they're doing better in school, so there's cognitive benefits to it. They're doing better in terms of developing problem solving skills, and they're getting much more connected to the school. Attendance is up for these individuals. Their self-esteem is boosted because they're part of something at the school. And again, at this point it's anecdotal, but it's nice to see that type of early result for esports, both in the college and in the high school setting. As always, there are concerns if you have high school kids in particular and they're at home practicing and it's an online game. There's always concerns of cyberbullying and some other issues like that. And then there are some concerns with video game addiction, but most of the organized esports do a really good job about ensuring that the athletes stick to a regimented schedule and that they're not, you know, they're going against the stereotype. They're not playing video games 24/7. They do play more than I would play, but it is something where they're on a regimented structure, and so there are, some safeguards in place to ensure that they're safe and healthy.
There's also a lot of studies that have been done about extended periods of play and how focus and skill level drops off after a certain number of hours, whether it be 3 or 4. So it's as programs become structured and people kind of get a little bit more structure with this, they're less likely to just mindlessly play for a significant amount of time, whereas putting significant amounts of focus in for a shorter period of time is more beneficial.
Sure. Yeah, I feel there's a stereotype where people assume that it's just people sitting at their computers all day and that's what esports is, and it's not that at all.
Yep.
Um, what I wanted to kind of get into next was thinking about from an academic perspective, some of the esport concepts that I've brought into some of my courses are a lot of the similarities that you see between kind of esports and sport management. And some of this has been because you have teams like the NBA who are developing their own esports leagues. When they hire someone to take that over, they typically take someone who already exists within their organizational structure and put them in charge of the esports team. And so they kind of have to learn on the fly. So those are people who have a traditional sport management background. Whereas something like the Overwatch League, they're hiring from within the video game development world because Overwatch was created by Blizzard, and so their contacts and their network is all within that community. And so they're starting to see a little bit of crossover, and so you're starting to see more of a traditional sport management approach to some of these teams. And I know I'm a little bit of a delay watching the Twitch, but
Sorry.
no, that's okay. That's just some of the limitations.
Yeah.
But one of the things that immediately jumps to my mind is some of the kind of sport marketing 101 concepts. And that's kind of the idea of when you market for a sport, it's a little bit different than marketing for a traditional product. When you go to, again, I apologize, I'm a Houston Astros fan, and it's been very difficult with all of the cheating that they've done. But if I were to go to a Houston Astros game, I don't actually consume that product until I am in the stadium. That game isn't actually produced either until the game is taking place. So it's not like they're developing a shoe that I'm going to purchase and that I can try out. It's like you consume it as you purchase it. Same thing with esports. When you're consuming that esports competition, it doesn't exist until it starts. Another thing about competitions and events and things like that is that it's intangible. I can't physically hold on to the baseball game that I'm attending or the esports stream that I'm watching. It's something that I can't physically hold on to, but I can still have a connection to. So those are kind of concepts you want to think about when you're trying to market something like that. The other issue is that it's inconsistent and it's unpredictable. One thing that we always try to teach our students very early on is that if you're marketing for a sport organization or an esport organization, you don't want to focus only on winning and losing. You can put together a great team. You can hire the best coach. You can have a great front office. But what happens on the field or what happens in the video game, you don't have control of. Once that starts, your hands are off and you just kind of have to hope for the best. And if you're putting all of your marketing resources into winning and losing, then you're taking a big risk that if the team is not successful, then you don't have anything to go upon. Now, granted, you should also capitalize if your team is successful, but you want to make sure that you're looking at other aspects of your sport organization or your esport organization. The other factor is the dependence on social aspects. If I go to a sporting event or if I'm tuned into a stream, I'm part of a community that's consuming that. Those of you that are in the Twitch, if you're engaging in the chat, you're engaging with other people that are consuming this presentation right now. And so there's a social aspect that's intertwined with it that you can't remove from it. And to me, that's why people have such strong connections to things like sports and esports, is because there's that, you have that commonality, and it's something that can bring people together, and you can root for a kind of a common thing, and it's a really fun experience. And so you have that same thing happen with esports. And kind of a good example, I think, of that is someone like Ninja, who's on the screen. I'm guessing most people have heard of Ninja. He's an extremely popular video game streamer who has gone kind of from video game streamer to kind of like a real mainstream celebrity. I had a fun experience I guess it was the last season of The Masked Singer when I was watching that with my son, and all of a sudden the mask comes off and it was Ninja, and it was this person that we both recognized. And so that was kind of cool to see that transition from an esports streamer to mainstream kind of celebrity show that you see on broadcast TV. But he was someone who is extremely talented at what he does. He's a tremendous Fortnite player and other games that he plays too. He's super talented, but he's not the best in the world at them. But he's so successful because he has an ability to connect with these individuals, with his audience. He does a good job really connecting and bringing people into his stream so that they feel like they're a part of his community. He's branded himself very effectively, and because of that, he's had the success that he's had. Um, Moving into the concept of storytelling, this is something that is essential in all aspects of marketing, no matter what you're marketing. And it's something where when I think of sport, a lot of what people talk about and the appeal of it is kind of this notion of the American dream, right? Like, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, if you work hard, you can find success and then you can make a career out of it. It doesn't matter whether you're from a wealthy neighborhood or a poor neighborhood. Like, it's something where you put in the hard work, you practice, you have an equal chance of success of someone else. And one of the big stories on the esports world is Sumail Hassan, who his family moved to the U.S. from Pakistan, and he started playing Dota when he was 7 years old and had success at a very, very young age. And he was someone, again, who came from very humble beginnings and was able to become the youngest person in the world of esports to earn over $1 million, and was named actually one of Time Magazine's most influential teens in 2016, and has continued this professional career in esports. I compare that similar to like Michael Orr. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Blind Side, but that was an individual who Michael bounced from foster home to foster home, had a very difficult childhood, and was finally able to find this family who took him in, gave him the support that he needed, and he was able to get a scholarship to the University of Mississippi and was eventually drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. So you have these kind of intertwined stories that can be told, and you start to see really the similarities. And when you have stories like that, it can really humanize something like esports that might be so foreign to some people and really draw that personal connection and bring them in. And as I talk on my last slide, oh no, sorry, I have two more slides. Another big aspect of both sport and esports is this reliance on corporate partners. Like, corporate dollars are huge in all sorts of industries. And when you talk about it in esports, most people talk about the idea of bringing in both endemic and non-endemic brands. Endemic brands are going to be brands that are natural within the setting of esports. And so the two logos up there that I would consider endemic would be Logitech and Razer, kind of the green squiggly one. And they both make gaming peripherals. And so if you're able to get one of those as a sponsor for your organization, then you're going to get outfitted with some very nice gear in which your team can use to play and compete. If you have corporate partners like Mountain Dew or Doritos or Enterprise, those aren't necessarily or those aren't really endemic to esports. You might see some connections to them, but it's not direct. Like, they're not really part of that ecosystem. And one of the reasons I included the Enterprise logo up there was very specific. Was I believe it was the Detroit Pistons NBA 2K team ran into a problem in their inaugural season when their athletes made it to Detroit. They didn't have any vehicles of their own to get around, and they needed to get from the home. Like, the NBA provided them a common house to live in so they could practice there in addition to practicing at the arena. And so they needed to get from their house, maybe to the grocery store, maybe to the arena, maybe to the airport to fly for their next match. And they were kind of struggling with a way to do that, and were mainly relying on like Uber and Lyft and other ride sharing services. And someone in their marketing department reached out to Enterprise and saw a really good opportunity, and Enterprise was able to see the benefit of partnering with this NBA 2K team and provided rental cars for the athletes so that they could get around. And so it's important to think about some other brands that would have a good synergy with your organization. And Enterprise is one that I wouldn't necessarily think of in esports, but it was such a natural fit for this program, and it was something that was beneficial to both Enterprise and to the Detroit NBA 2K team.
Any of the players are watching it or listening, we probably won't have rental cars for you soon.
Got to work on that, Tim.
Yeah, sorry.
And my last slide, I will apologize, and I'll have to go quick so there's time for Q&A. Um, uh, my my boss and my mentor, Mark Hobson, he does a lot of research on neuroscience, and he shared an article with me that really talked about how video games have been extremely beneficial to individuals that primarily older individuals in terms of developing gray matter. So, not to get too scientific, because I won't do it justice, and I don't want to upset Mark if he's listening, but gray matter exists in the hippocampus in your brain, and it's something that's linked to memory function, muscle control, speech. It's very important, and most people will see a decrease in that over time. And researchers found that playing complex video games, typically within like a 3D kind of setting, they actually saw an increase in the amount of gray matter that they had inside of their brain. And they're starting to speculate that this might be a way to actually video games might be a way to combat Alzheimer's disease. And because what happens is, it's essentially when you're playing these types of games, and especially if it's a 3D world and you're trying to kind of get your bearings within that world and spatially recognize where you fit in and where your opponents are and where you need to go. And as you're making these complex decisions in the game, it's kind of flexing the muscle of your brain. And so you're actually having this really positive cognitive benefit that you're hopefully not necessarily aware of and just having fun in the game. And we have a picture of C4 next to the brain, not as any threatening indicator, but because one of the games that I play with my son a lot is Fortnite. And Fortnite has a lot of decisions that you're making on the fly. And sometimes the developers will just introduce something new to the game to keep it fresh. And so even if you're prepared and you have a plan, there might be an update. And so when you log in, there's something new in the game. And recently they introduced these remote explosives that really changed things in terms of your strategy, because it was something you could set out as traps. It was very effective in destroying builds. And it was something where if you weren't prepared for, you had to really kind of learn it on the fly and figuring out how to effectively use it. If I throw 3 of these out and hit the trigger button, what order are they going to explode? What control do I have over them in this environment? And that's one thing that I think is very interesting with modern video games that didn't exist when I was a kid, is that because they are sending these patches to update it, the rules and what you are playing with might change from one day to the next, and you have to be very quickly in terms of how you adapt to those changes. And that type of decision making is what's very beneficial to the brain development itself. So
Yep, which is good news for me. Um, so I am gonna given that I want to go kind of on a deep dive in. Obviously, the title of this was change management in esports and adaptation. So I want to talk about how the esports program handles change. So I put up here, you can see Riot Games. They are the developer for League of Legends. So I'm going to go pretty deep onto League of Legends. Recently announced an update to a character called Fiddlesticks. You can see him on the screen there, or them. Them. I'm gonna go with a them for Fiddlesticks. Um, Fiddlesticks is a demon that lives in a scarecrow body. Their entire ethos is fear. So when Riot decides that they're going to put a new champion into the game, I have put up a very basic summary of effectively how that kind of goes and how we did things in IT primarily, mostly release management, but change management there as well. So they come up with a concept for Fiddlesticks. They already had this base concept of Fiddlesticks. He was a character. They were a character that was already in the game. And they wanted to iterate on it because they felt that the fear aspect of that character wasn't as strong. So they came up with a new concept. They developed it, they did some internal testing, they put it to public testing, they released it. They did not release Fiddlesticks yet. They will release it, but all of their champion releases effectively go this way. They release it, they get player feedback, they assess the results by taking a look at kind of what the changes did to the game as a whole. They decide whether or not they need to make those changes, and put it back into internal testing. I am very excited for Fiddlesticks to be implemented, but I will say that they came up with this concept, developed it, brought it to internal testing, and released it to the PTR, and it was already too strong. Which happens, and sometimes characters in video games are too strong. Before we get into some metagame talks and what that looks like and what a metagame is, I want to go over a couple of key concepts just to keep in mind. And I really want to tie these to everybody's specific industry or business or what they work on, because change doesn't happen in a vacuum. We're all, as it stands right now, adapting to a pretty significant social change that is happening. Everybody is at home, and everybody is watching this on the internet as opposed to being in the esports arena. So some of the key concepts I want to go over when it comes to consuming changes. So, for example, how our team consumes changes that are made by Riot Games to League of Legends, gathering information, figuring out exactly what is being changed, and then assessing, figuring out what that looks like, how that might change things, calculating risk and impact. So deciding, is our main strategy going to change? Is something specific to our core beliefs, values, personal, or I guess business identity at risk here with what is happening. And then adaptation, kind of on the other side, figuring out what to do with that and how to respond. So developing a strategy, coming up with that risk calculation and the impact, and deciding what to do moving forward from there, implementing that strategy, reviewing that strategy, and then iterating on that. So moving forward and saying, like, that worked, that did not work. We should do this small change instead, or that worked flawlessly and we should move a little bit forward with that idea, and kind of keep going that way. So I ask everybody to just kind of keep those in mind as we're going through the rest here. It's come up a couple times, the metagame. So the metagame is the game about the game. And I have hopefully a simple an example of a metagame that will come up a little bit further. But basically, it is any discussion or anything that happens outside of the game. So my simple example is rock, paper, scissors, and this is a rock, paper, scissors tier list. Looking at a couple of studies of rock, paper, scissors, says something like rock is thrown 35% of the time, scissors is thrown 34% of the time, and paper is thrown the rest of the time. So when we consider that, rock is therefore the best. It is S tier because it beats scissors, which is the second most used item, I guess item in rock, paper, scissors. And it loses to paper, which is used less frequently. Now, my example of a broken metagame, or the ways that things could be complicated here, is, let's say that they add dynamite to this game, and dynamite beats everything, but dynamite ties with itself. The metagame of rock, paper, scissors would then become a whole lot of people playing dynamite over and over and over again, never losing. It's a very boring game if that happens. If they then add another item, which is Blast Shield, and it doesn't lose to dynamite, but it beats everything else, the metagame evolves and it changes. We kind of move forward from that. So I want to talk about League of Legends because it is effectively rock, paper, scissors with a whole lot of other complexities added, times approximately 8 million. So in League, there's 148 unique characters, 5 unique characters per team for a total of 10 per game. Each of those characters has 4 to 5 unique abilities. So in order for you to get into and play League of Legends, you need to have a really strong understanding of who those characters are, what they can do, and how well they match up against each other. So I tried to run the math on this, and I have to apologize, I'm not a math major. Somewhere between 30 and 50 billion unique character compositions between 10 total characters per game with 148 unique characters. The most important thing about League of Legends and the metagame, and why I'm talking about this, is that everything about them changes. So somebody's health pool, their damage, their attack speed, ability power could change on a regular basis, usually every 2 to 3 weeks. And we have to adapt every 2 to 3 weeks to stay competitive in the varsity scene. On top of that, the map itself has changed pretty significantly over time. So a big metagame shift that happened recently was the implementation of a different dragon. So in the game League of Legends, there is a neutral dragon that sits in the river, and if you kill it, you get a significant bonus. So they changed the way that that worked, and now, as opposed to it being a balanced map where top lane, mid lane, and bottom lane are all kind of equal in power, now bottom lane becomes significantly more important because it is near the dragon, and securing that is a huge deal. So the way that we consume these changes is through patch notes, and this is a very small portion of the patch notes that just came out for patch 10.6 for League of Legends. You can see that they have done some work here to make it a little bit more understandable. So at very first glance, if I wanted to know what changed in this game in the last patch, I can take a look and see Draven, Hecarim, Kayn, Kindred, they all got buffed along with the other ones. A couple of characters got nerfed because they were too strong, and Wukong got changed pretty significantly. But if you look at some of the details of that, Kindred their attack damage growth was increased from 2.26 to 2.5. And the question is, how much does that matter, right? Given the context of the game, or really not knowing what League of Legends is, or how to play it, or anything to that effect, the question is, what does that matter? But that change could be anywhere from adding dynamite to Kindred, or or putting a blast shield in front of Kindred, right? So the scope of the change that occurs in this game on a frequent basis is very large, because changes like this are happening to, as you can see, about 18 or 19 of the 148 characters very, very frequently. So the way that we work on that, and I want to give credit to Xincheng, our jungler for League of Legends, for being in this picture, and the League of Legends team for doing this. We hold regular meetings where we assess changes that are coming through from Riot Games when they make changes to their games. We decide which champions we are comfortable playing. We decide which ones we think are the strongest, and we evaluate. And we come up with a particular strategy. So you can see it is fairly difficult to see there, but one column is one of our players' comfort on a champion. The other column is their perceived strength, based on the changes that have happened. Trying to get a grasp on what the metagame is going to be ahead of time. And then we get together and we come up with a strategy. So you can see we have 5 different compositions in that right image there that we've put together that have various different characters that we could possibly bring in. And they have all different strategies within those different compositions. So we are, on a very frequent basis, working on adaptation and working to learn and understand what is going to happen, or what we can kind of read of the metagame, the perceived strength and the perceived weaknesses of all of the characters and the way that the games will play out. Once we've done that, this is the pick ban phase in League of Legends. We're able to ban characters. So, like I said, if they introduce Dynamite to the game, everybody would just play Dynamite. Well, if they introduce Dynamite to League of Legends, we can ban Dynamite, which is great. It provides us a little bit of a safeguard, but it also kind of adds this complexity where if a particular strategy is incredibly strong, you can either allow it to go through the pick ban phase and choose an opposing strategy that has a good matchup against it, or you can ban it out completely and hope that your opponents aren't comfortable on any others, because they've been so focused on the strongest composition or team possible. This is Ornn and Fizz. I had this in this presentation and I didn't remove it. I hope you like Ornn and Fizz. They're 2 of my favorite characters. So to bring it back to some of the concepts I talked about with change earlier, I want to play this video, and hopefully this time I'll actually play it on the screen and not just talk about it in the middle. I'm not playing it just yet, but I'm going to talk about information gathering, which is what we do. It's really that the consumption of change to really understand that something has changed. I need to assess what that change means and how significant it's going to be to me, and then I need to adapt. Now, I play this clip in particular. So like I said, I started with StarCraft 2. That was the game that I loved back when I was in college. StarCraft 2 is effectively chess times speed of 1,000. So there are 2 different players in this game. One of them plays a race called Terran. The other plays a race called Protoss. In the metagame at the time, Protoss had a very strong strategy of building buildings outside of a Terran's base that would kill them at the very start of the game. So before they had the ability to mine all the minerals that you see on the screen and build up a base, Protoss could sneak into their base and build some photon cannons behind them. But I want to show you what happens in here. And I'm going to mute this one intentionally. So you can see that's the Protoss player, and this is the Terran player. They have lifted their base off, and they have moved to a different base. So Terran has that capability. They can literally just move their building. Protoss has decided that because this is a 2v2 map, or a 1v1 map, excuse me, Terran has to be in this location. So they think that Terran is right here because it's a 1v1 map. That's where they start. Terran decided that they were going to move off into this section in the base. So I bring this up because I think it's an important point to make sure that you're gathering the correct information. So, like, I want to apply metagames to business and how to react to what is happening within an industry and how to respond to changes that are kind of happening all around the world and in individual lives, that sort of thing. So, because this Protoss player, there's day 9. Because this Protoss player did so and did not scout their opponent effectively and did not gather information, they've lost the game. They've put all of their resources into one strategy. And because they didn't have the correct information to build their assessment and to build their strategy on, and just followed the metagame and looked around and said, hey, this is a strong strategy that other people are doing, I want to use it, they failed because they were only playing to the metagame. They weren't playing to what was happening in their specific industry or exactly around them. So I liken this, and this was something I came up with today. I liken this to like the AARP suddenly investing a whole lot of resources into getting popular on TikTok. Because a lot of companies are putting a lot of interest and importance in being present on social media and working with people on social media. But the AARP on TikTok probably doesn't have the audience that they would expect. So that I just want to reiterate, gather information, assess what that information means to you, calculate the risk that comes to that, and calculate the outcomes that would have on you, and react and learn through your next game or learn through your next attempt in life, and then don't be afraid to fail because we're just all trying to read the metagame. So that's what we got, and that ran fairly long. So I'd like to apologize for that, and also for the video issues at the start. I want to mostly say thank you to Mike and to Christy and to everybody over at in the alumni office for hosting. And I apologize to everybody that we couldn't do this in the arena, but I'm excited that we were still able to do this here. Yeah.
I will say, if you're interested in staying involved with all of the esports offerings, the Discord link is there on the screen right now. And that's the best place to get all of the information, whether you want to learn about a varsity match that's coming up, whether you want to join one of our intramural leagues that are launching on Monday, or whether you want to engage as an alumni or a fan, or just however you would like to engage with any of the esports offerings. That Discord is going to be the central hub for everything.
Yep. So after this, gonna take a short break, and then if anybody is interested in doing some sort of a pickup game, whether or not you are, I think League of Legends is probably the best game because it is free, and if anybody does not play any of the esports titles that we have, I think that's a good opportunity. So I encourage you to join the Discord in the Business Indicator Series channel. There we will be keeping an eye there. If anybody's interested in playing games, please let me know so that we can see if you guys are interested. So I am going to take a break for the time being. I'm going to leave the stream up. But yeah, thank you again, Mike. I appreciate it. If you're interested in playing, please let me know.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.